Ladies and gentlemen, film producing partners for the last 53 years, Roger and Julie Corman.
Hello Roger Corman, hello Julie Corman. Thank you for coming on the last drive-in show. Your movie's all the best, and everybody knows. We love you, come on, we love you.
I think you got that riff from Rock All Night, right?
Don't tell anybody.
Okay. All right, Roger, I'm going to assume that in the final shot of Bucket of Blood, Walter Paisley was just too inept to completely cover himself with sculptor's clay, and so the final shot was not the result of having too little sculptor's clay or too little time.
Right. No, that was planned. That was set up in advance.
Oh, okay. Well, welcome to the only film festival that celebrates the drive-in movie and the drive-in moviegoers of America and the world. And you may remember this, but 40 years ago at the Gemini Drive-In in Dallas, we stood together on the roof of the concession stand and I gave you a Lifetime Achievement Award engraved on a Chevy hubcap. Do you remember that?
I remember it. I still have the hubcap.
Okay. So what you should probably get tonight for your more than a Lifetime Achievement Award is an engraved Lamborghini hubcap or maybe an engraved Ferrari hubcap, but we don't recognize foreign cars at American drive-ins, so the best we can do is an engraved Cadillac hubcap.
Yes, right.
Darcy, bring the Cadillac hubcap, because if you rolled up to a drive-in in a Cadillac in the 50s, 60s, or 70s, you were probably showing up for the Roger Corman movie.
Oh, that's great. Great. I love it.
Yeah, and actually, we have one for you too, Julie, because you're a producer in your own right. You deserve your own Academy Award, your Drive-In Academy Award. And in fact, Roger, you were the man who brought Ingmar Bergman to the drive-in. So
Yes.
That's definitely kind of a Cadillac sort of billing.
Yes, right.
How did that happen?
Well, what happened was we were distributing Bergman's film, Cries and Whispers. And on a film like that, you open it in New York and Los Angeles, and then you play college towns. For instance, if you're going to play San Francisco, you also play Berkeley and Palo Alto.
Okay.
So we had played all of these places, and I knew that drive-ins in the fall had trouble getting pictures because the weather was turning, the kids were going back to school, the major studios didn't want to give them a picture. And we had all of these prints left over from Cries and Whispers. So I said, why not put Cries and Whispers in a drive-in and see what happens? And
what happened?
we were delighted to find we had done average business.
All right.
So one of my favorite stories about how Roger distributed films and all over the map was someone sent us a picture of a double bill at a drive-in outside of Nashville, and it was Jonathan Demme's Women in Cages and Ingmar Bergman's Cries and Whispers.
The two extremes of Roger Corman's career. All right, I want to take you back to 1953 and a movie called Highway Dragnet,
Yes.
which opens with a montage of all the neon on Fremont Street. And this was your first film as writer and associate producer, and it's not one of the expected Roger Corman genres. It's a film noir.
Yes.
How did that come about?
I had written this script, which I called The House in the Sea. And I sold it to, I think, Bill Broidy, a producer. And he changed the name, which I didn't think was good, to Highway Dragnet, because Dragnet was popular, and I told him I would work for nothing if I could come along and be his assistant on that picture. And from when I learned on that, I started producing. I produced a couple of films, and then I thought, I was seeing what the directors were doing, and I thought, I can do that. So on the next one, I became a director, and the picture was successful. And also, already I was working as a director and never stopped.
Oh, wow. All right. Well, that's very appropriate for tonight's program, because we're calling tonight's program Roger Corman's first 70 years in Hollywood. And I want to do something that we haven't done before, Roger. I want to go through your 70 years in about 7 minutes.
Okay. That can be done.
Okay. And I want to do it in the following way. Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe you may be not only the producer-director with the longest tenure in Hollywood. I mean, there have been some actors who started as child actors who have almost an equal tenure.
Yeah.
But you're also the only filmmaker who has worked in every genre. Because I was trying to think of a genre that you somehow missed. I thought maybe love story was the genre you missed, and then I found no, you made a love story movie. So during your 700 film career, and by the way, your name is definitely on 700 films. I see 500 as the most common number attributed to you, but any explanation for the world not knowing how many films you've made?
Because I don't remember myself.
Okay. Well, let me put it this way. There are 2 people in the world who have watched all 700 of your films. You and me. Okay. And so...
and you lived through it.
I did. And so I'm going to go through your career, and I'm just going to list the genre that you specialized in at various times. And you tell me, I want you to tell me whether you have fond memories of that genre, whether you have bad memories of that period, and what you really think of that genre. Do you love that genre? So you
Yes.
have the concept?
Yes.
Okay, so you started with Westerns. The first
Yes.
one, I think, was Five Guns West. Do you love Westerns?
It wasn't that I loved them. It was that they were very popular and saleable. So my first film as a director was Five Guns West.
Okay, and I remember in Five Guns West, you have a character say, "We're going to go across vast, dangerous Indian territory, and we have to be exceedingly careful." And then I believe you had one Indian who jumped off of a rock. Is that right?
Yes.
and I think the Indian doubled as one of the intrepid cowboys.
Yes.
That's right.
Actually, I made 4 Westerns, and I can give you the titles, and you'll think of the season of the thing. I made Gunslinger, which I picked, Gunslinger, and Five Guns West. Jim Nicholson picked Oklahoma Woman and Apache Woman.
Okay. All right. The next one, you made a movie called Swamp Women, which started a genre called redneck action movies. So,
Yes.
and my question for that, which you made a lot of in the 70s, by the way.
Yeah.
And so my question would be, do you love the South?
I tolerated the South.
Because I would say you made more movies about the, both as a producer and a director, more movies about the Nashville Girl and Eat My Dust and movies like this, all set in the South. And so we wondered, why was Roger in the South for so long?
It was a territory that was immediately identified as being different from the rest of the country.
Okay.
But don't forget he put his life on the line with The Intruder in Arkansas.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
The Intruder, which I should tell you this, Roger. I mean, I've interviewed you a couple of times, and you've always said that The Intruder was the only movie you ever made that didn't make money. But in the year 2012, it actually went into the black. Now I realize that didn't go into your pocket, So maybe you still consider it a loser,
No.
but it actually did eventually make money.
We did because that was Bill Shatner and I did something for DVD or something, and the money on that finally broke us in.
Oh, so you did get the money.
Yeah, finally.
That's great. All right. Science fiction monster movies. It Conquered the World, I think, was your first one as a director.
Yeah.
And an affection for sci-fi, a special affection for sci-fi.
Yeah, I've always liked sci-fi because sci-fi is laid in fantastic areas, but it's to a large extent, it can be a comment on the present day through science fiction.
And I think you were the last major filmmaker who was doing relatively low budget science fiction. Once outer space became a high budget type of genre, but well into the 80s, you were still doing fairly low budget sci-fi films.
Yeah, except I had 2 Russian science fiction pictures that I bought that were huge pictures. Science fiction was a big thing in Russia, and I went to Moscow and bought 2 of their biggest science fiction pictures, and then this is where Francis Coppola came in. He had just graduated from the UCLA Film School, and I said, Francis, your job is to translate and recut these films to make them in English, and he did a great job.
And so you disguised the Russian pictures as American pictures.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
We made a rush. We may not have. I guess we won the Cold War, but at least we won that.
Okay.
But Roger, didn't you tell me that the first thing you wrote was a science fiction story when you were young?
Yes. I wrote a science fiction story, but it didn't sell. So.
Okay. Well, when I first met you in the 80s, you had just finished Mutant, which became Forbidden World. And the reason I remember it is that the mutant had been cast aside and was like moldering in a corner of the New World Studios. But Forbidden World is actually a very underappreciated movie. Over the years, people have discovered it, and it's become a fairly well-known cult movie. Film noir thrillers like Naked Paradise.
I always liked film noir, and I made them simply because I liked that genre.
So that is one that you did because out of your personal preferences.
I'm a great admirer of Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett.
All right. And I've got to say, you're probably a great admirer of James M. Cain as well, because I think a lot of those erotic thrillers were various versions of James M. Cain novels.
Yeah, I should have included him, yeah.
Yes, okay. Rock and roll musicals. Rock All Night, I think, was the first one. What are your real tastes in music?
Actually, I liked early rock and roll. I thought early rock and roll with Elvis and so forth, I thought they were great.
Yeah, okay. And historical action movies. I mean, the one that comes to mind immediately is, I always love this title, The Saga of the Viking Women and Their Voyage to the Waters of the Great Sea Serpent.
Oh, yeah.
But you would make a certain type of movie that was a female action movie, plus monsters, plus bikinis, right? all your genres together.
We put it all together.
But you liked those period, even though they required expensive. Well, I guess the costumes weren't expensive, were they?
Well, what happened was Jack Raven, who was a special effects man, came up with this idea that he would do special effects and we would make this huge picture. The special effects were terrible, so but we made it anyway.
So you made money anyway. Now, you did straight from the headlines exploitation movies, but the most famous one probably being War of the Satellites. Did you do that often? take a big story from the newspapers and turn it into a movie?
Yes, the head of Allied Artists, when the satellite went up, I said to him, if you'll give me the money, I can have a satellite picture in 90 days. And he gave me the money, and I made War of the Satellites.
And it was a big hit.
Yeah.
All right. I noticed there were 3 screenwriters on it. You were carefully shepherding that script, right?
Yes, right.
All right. Gangster films, Machine Gun Kelly.
Yeah.
Great film. You made Charles Bronson's career with that film.
Actually, it was strangely enough I did. It was a 10-day picture that I think I made for about $60,000. I had got very good reviews in the United States, but when it showed in France, the French Nouvelle Vague critics and directors acclaimed the film, and they hired an Italian company, hired Charlie to come over and play the lead, and he built his whole career overseas before he became a star overseas before he came back to the United States.
That's great. They always loved you in France, right? Even from the earliest movies.
Right.
They just honored Roger at the Cannes Festival closing night. Yeah, it was a very, very exciting, until now, one of the most exciting things that happened in Roger's career, in my view. So what happened was he was told that he was giving an award to the first-time director. And then a surprise happened as he came out on stage, but just before, Quentin Tarantino came out and said, "Ladies and gentlemen," you know how Quentin can be, right? "I am here to introduce the man who's filled my eyes, my lust, my my treasuring of films for decades and on like that for a while, Roger." And all the while, I don't know how many films. I think Roger claims 400. I've seen 500. This is the first time I heard 700. But all of the posters were scrolling on the back of the stage at the closing night film festival, and Roger was honored that way.
That's wonderful. And then starting with the movie that we just saw, this is your most interesting period. With the movie we just saw, Bucket of Blood, movies that were sort of your own comedy genres, A Bucket of Blood, Little Shop of Horrors, it's almost like they were larks or experiments.
They were Chuck Griffith, the writer, and I, on the first one, which is a Bucket of Blood, we drifted around all the coffee houses one night along Sunset Boulevard and then based the script on that. And it turned out very well. And then the same thing for Little Shop of Horrors.
Right. Well, it's a remarkably accurate depiction of the beatnik coffee houses of the day.
Yeah.
Then you had some pure action movies. Ski Troop Attack was one of the early ones.
Yes.
Just action, 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 action in every scene.
Yes. Ski Troop Attack we shot in South Dakota, and we had, we were supposed to have, there was a former German ski trooper who was going to play the lead, and he said he was injured and couldn't play the lead. And I thought, I'm stuck up here and I've got to shoot in a few days. I thought, I don't know what to do. I thought, okay, I'll play the lead. The only problem is I couldn't ski. And I was skiing all over the place. I almost killed myself on that picture.
You brought back costume drama when you started doing your Edgar Allan Poe films. Costume drama was dead.
Yeah.
And I know Vincent Price always gave you credit for bringing back upper-class accents and costumes because he said his career might not have survived if that had not happened. But House of Usher, I guess, was the first one, and all of your Poe movies. Now, you did have a special affection for those, didn't you?
Yes, very much. AIP wanted me to make some picture. I've forgotten what it was, and I said, I'd rather make I want to make The Fall of the House of Usher. And I remember Sam Markoff said, but there's no monster in The Fall of the House of Usher. He knew the story. And I thought, oh, how do I answer this? I said, Sam, the house is the monster. And he said, oh, okay, you can make it.
All right, that's great. All right, now, then you went through a period of what I call the Roger Corman art film period, meaning movies that don't really resolve in a traditional way, like The Wild Angels, like The Trip. You sort of merged the exploitation and the art film world in the mid-'60s in what I think is a really interesting period. How did that happen?
What happened was this. I had been cheated a couple of times on distribution on some of the more successful films. And it turned out that Ingmar Bergman felt he had been cheated by Svensk film industry also. So he did something to show that a great artist can be a great businessman. He made, I think it was Cries and Whispers, I'm not certain. He made it himself. And what he said was, I will give this picture to every distributor in each country who will give me an advance of what the film cost me, so that I will break even, and then I will split with him on the profits. And I immediately took that offer and took Cries and Whispers, and Cries and Whispers, of course, was a giant success.
Yes, but you were also making your own art films like The Trip and The Wild Angels.
Yes, that was after I had done the Poe pictures. And I said, they wanted me to do another one. And I said, I've done so many of these, I'm repeating myself. I want to get out of the studio and I want to get into the streets and just shoot what's going on. And they said, what do you want to shoot? And I said, I want to make a picture about the Hells Angels. And I did. And the picture was an incredible success. And they cheated me again on that. But it was such a big success, they wanted me to make another one. And I said, why would I make another one when you cheated me on the last one? They said, we will settle with you on the last one and give you a percentage on the new one. So I made The Trip, which is about LSD. It was, again, a giant success. And they cheated me again.
Oh, no! Oh, wow. That's terrible. But we love those films. We're going to show them later tonight. And then, of course, when you and Julie joined together later on New World Pictures in the 1970s, you started defining all kinds of new genres as a producer. Women in prison movies.
Yeah.
Whatever genre, the student nurses and the student teachers movies. What is that genre? That's feminist exploitation, is what I would call that. You know. And didn't you make several of those yourself, Julie?
I did. In fact, my favorite line out of any was from the student teachers, and the line is the girl saying to the coach, "I don't want to watch, I want to play."
And back to the redneck action movie, and when Burt Reynolds was such a big star, you were making all kinds of redneck action movies in the South. The Slumber Party movie, the erotic thriller. You were back to monsters with things like Carnosaur. If I'm not mistaken, you had the first sword and sorcery movie in the 80s, even before Conan came out. Is that right?
Yeah, Deathstalker.
Oh, Deathstalker. Well, yes, and we love Deathstalker. We're going to show it in just a minute. And throughout all these years of writing through the genres, did you ever have a favorite genre or a favorite movie or a favorite filmmaker?
If I had a favorite genre, it might be science fiction.
That's not surprising. Yeah. Did you ever have a favorite? Is there one movie that comes back to you as being full of good memories and good feelings, where they didn't cheat you?
Grand Theft Auto, which was Ron Howard's first film as
That's
a
a great
director.
choice, yeah.
He did a wonderful, wonderful job. And I remember he wanted more extras on one scene. And I said, Ron, I can't give you more extras, but if you do a good job on this, you will never work for me again.
And that came true, right?
Right.
All right.
But I worked for him.
Well, the reason I mentioned art films is I think your most creative period, I guess I would call it your auteur period, came in the 60s with The Trip, which we'll be screening here later tonight. And to make The Trip, you took LSD in the company, I think, of most of the cast of The Trip. Didn't they join you in Big Sur?
Yes, they felt that if I could try it, they could try it. The trouble is, I just laid down in the dirt and went into this LSD dream. And I remember one thing, I still remember that. I saw a clipper ship sailing towards me out of the gold background, and as it changed, the clipper ship became women, and the women opened their arms to me in that trip. It was a wonderful trip. The problem was when we made the picture, because it was partially written and partially improvised, and had all these guys here, and I was saying, I had such a great trip. Didn't somebody have a bad trip? This thing is going to end up as an ad for LSD.
Well, one of those cast members who was with you at Big Sur, I think, is here tonight. The character of John in the movie, the character who is supposedly there to talk the person through their trip in case it goes bad. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Bruce Dern is with us. Thank you for being here, Bruce. We wanted to get one outside take on that little stock company of the 60s. The stock company was yourself, Jack Nicholson, Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, I think was in
Yeah,
that group.
Dennis was there.
Was that just a chance of all those genius actors and writers and performers all being together at the same time? Because I can't imagine anything like that happening today, because people just don't hang out like that anymore.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't by chance. I chose them, as I recall. This is so long ago, Bruce, I can hardly remember. How do you remember?
I remember all of it.
Who was the leader of the pack?
Well, first of all, none of the guys you just mentioned, or the girls, ever went to college or finished college. But we went to the University of Corman. And in the 3 films I did with them, we did them close together. The Trip we did right after, actually. We finished The Wild Angels. But the camaraderie on the set, the thing this guy did more than anybody I've probably ever worked with, except maybe Mr. Hitchcock, was the guy gathered people together. Alexander Payne does it today. Quentin Tarantino does it today. And he did it every movie he did. He would come up with grips, electricians. I mean, on the second unit, which was me running off with the motorcycle in The Wild Angels, well, the cameraman and director was Peter Bogdanovich.
Second unit director on The Wild Angels was Peter Bogdanovich?
And in the graveyard. He had to be in the graveyard, too. And it was such a delight. I remember I asked Roger, I said, after one day or someplace in the day, I said, how many of these goddamn movies have you made? And you said, well, this is somewhere in the 200s.
Oh, that was early.
Oh, what I liked most about Roger was he perpetuated the movie business without us ever realizing that's what he was doing. And
That's very true.
you do shit that's never been done. And the only time I ever got bugged at him was he didn't put me in Von Richthofen and Brown.
Ah, Von Richthofen and Brown, another very underrated movie.
Oh, well, I got two or three little stories here about Roger, but the one thing I want you to know, for example, Laura was conceived on the Wild Angels. So when you go down to Palm Springs and he says, now go off down those trails by the river and then turn around, come back as fast as you can. We were 50 guys on motorcycles. And he did a really neat thing. He got the real Hells Angels. Everybody was real. I even got beat up one night when I was going back to my dressing room because I had non-Hells Angel colors on. And they grabbed me and beat me up. And the next day, police came to the set. Are you okay, Mr. Dern? I said, yeah, I'm okay. And Earl Fenn and Sonny Barger came over to me and said, we like what you said to the police. You said nothing. Because we will take care of this. Believe me. I don't know if he meant to do that, Roger, or not. But he always seemed to gather steam when we did scenes that nowadays they say, well, they were improvised. Chuck Griffiths wrote that shit. Yeah. I mean, it was... the excitement about him was everything happened right there. And he filmed it. And he was just so unique. In his point of view and everything. And I said, I made a movie once called Silent Running. And it's a very good science fiction movie. Douglas Trumbull directed it. I said, where'd you get the idea for this? He said, well, I didn't get the idea for this from what I'm going to tell you. But I took a week with Roger Corman, space films. And I said, he made space films? I didn't know anything about it because when they said drive-in movies, that was, we were learning how to get an A on the slate instead of a B. And I got that the first minute I was there. I mean, he did one wonderful thing for me. In the Wild Angels, I die in a motorcycle accident that Bogdanovich filmed, incidentally. And then I'm in the coffin with an open coffin, and the Hells Angels celebrating my death ripped the church apart. And I guess no one would say, don't do that. And it's good, because if they'd have told them don't do that, they might have torn the whole block down. You know, I mean, it was just, I think the thing I still look forward to, I'm 97 and he's 111.
You're 97?
Yeah.
I'm 97.
No, I'm 93.
93.
Excuse me.
Oh.
You're 97, I'm 87. Sorry. But, and then when I drive up here tonight to come to this event, I look up on the screen and I don't think I'm wrong, but there's Dick Miller. And he, I thought, was in almost every movie you made.
Yeah, Dick and I worked together many, many times.
Oh, I thought so. I thought Roger was a relic. And I got pissed off year after year when the AFI or the Academy wouldn't just say, hey, bud, you did all this shit. Come on down. Let's give you something. And they did, finally.
They did give him an Academy Award.
So, and I got the biggest kick out of was I look around the set on the Wild Angels and the Trip for a few times. An assistant cameraman was Francis Coppola. The prop man was Jonathan Demme. Jack Litsky was in charge of anything that moved on wheels. And all these guys went to be big things and that out of his tutelage. And he had them on every movie. The only guy I never met was Chuck Griffiths.
Oh, yeah.
Because I said, where is he? Oh, he's in a room writing. I don't know if it's for me, though. And what Roger did for us is not only would he pay us decently, but he put our names above the title. And that is the key thing you got. If you don't get paid real well, you need billing.
That's great. Let me ask both of you about the Wild Angels. Do you think that movie? It was many of the same people involved in the Wild Angels end up in Easy Rider. Is there a direct connection between?
Easy Rider was first.
Okay.
Yes, there was. I don't want to get into it, but
He was going to
on
direct
Easy
it.
Rider, I arranged for American International to finance it, and I was to be executive producer because Dennis and Peter had never made a picture, and I was to get a percentage of the profits. But it's a long story. Sam Markoff wrecked the whole deal.
I should mention. I didn't mention when I was going through all your genres the motorcycle movie, but you did. There was like a 3 or 4 year period of biker movies,
Yeah.
and then The Trip is a genre all of its own.
Yeah.
And both of those were of course ripped from the headlines type
Yeah.
movies, filmed in a very 60s way, which is to say a free-form story structure. Jack Nicholson wrote the script for the Trip,
Yeah.
and yet they were big commercial hits.
Yeah.
Do you think that kind of thing could happen today?
Uh,
Either one of you?
Yes, but it's more difficult because theatrical distribution is confined very heavily to Marvel Comics and things like that. So
True.
it's a little bit more difficult, but it could happen.
All right.
I was just going to say before you go off that, Bruce, did you know that on the Wild Angels, Roger got a death threat?
What?
What?
Death
You gotta-
threat?
The
You
Hells
gotta-
Angels put a contract on you?
You got
Pardon?
When the Hells Angels put a contract on you when you were?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I remember I had a great contract with a phone call with Big Otto Friedley. He called me, and I remember I remember that conversation exactly. Otto called me, and he said, "Hey, man, we're going to snuff you out." And I said, Otto, think about this. You've already announced and said you're going to kill me. If I slip and fall in the bathtub, the police are going to come after you. On the other hand, you're suing me for $1 million for defamation of character. How do you expect to collect the $1 million if you kill me? My advice to you is forget the momentary pleasure of killing me and go for the $1 million. And he thought a little bit and he said, "Yeah, man, that's what we'll do. We'll go for the $1 million."
All right. Well, Roger, I would love to see 70 more years of your movies. Do you have a next movie? Are you making a movie? What's your next one?
With my old friend Brad Cravoy on remaking Little Shop of Horrors as a possible Halloween picture, and we're working on that.
That's great. That's great. You're talking to the right audience about that.
I will do a cameo in that movie.
Okay.
Where I look into the camera and go, That was Jack's birth.
All right.
All right. Joe Bob, you forgot to mention Roger's acting career. Come on.
I didn't mention your acting career. You were in The Godfather 2. You were in.
What happened was this. I kept playing these little roles for friends of mine who were directing. And a guy from Screen Actors Guild called me and said, you have to join the guild. And I said, I'm not an actor. I just play these little roles for friends of mine. It's an in-joke. And he said, the joke's going far enough. You're working more than half our members, and you have to join the guild. So suddenly, I joined the guild, and all of a sudden, I'm getting residuals as an actor.
Actually, I think you should be on strike.
As a matter of fact, I thought about that. I'm going to tell him I'm ill, which I can't make it out there.
All right.
Bruce, I wanted to respond to what you said about the camaraderie on the set of the young actors and so on, and to say that when Roger got his Academy Award, that Jack Nicholson raised his glass and said, "Thanks for believing in me, Rog," when none of the rest of them did.
That's right.
I can back that up for not only myself, but I took Diane Ladd, who was my wife at the time, with me to the interview. And when we stood up to go, he said, Miss Ladd, I've seen some of your work. Why don't you come on down and do this? She said, do a Roger Corman motorcycle movie? It's like Laura called me up one day and she said, Daddy, do I want to do a dinosaur movie? And I said, well, it would depend on the ingredients. I mean, who's directing and so forth and so on. Anyway, it was always fun to be with him and be able to say this kind of stuff about a guy who, God damn it, deserves it. 40 years ago, he deserved it. You know?
And we honored him 40 years ago. So, listen, I want to thank you both for being here. I know you both probably have plans to spend the rest of the night experimenting with various recently legalized narcotics. So, and Julie, make sure you don't take anything yourself. You're the designated safe person for tonight. And but Roger, I wanted to say this to you at last. I know that you have been honored by many prestigious film organizations. You were kind of a bad boy when you were young, and then you became at some point the elder statesman. So many of these film organizations have honored you. The British Film Institute has honored you. The Cinema Francais has honored you at least twice. The Academy gave you a lifetime Oscar. But we like to think here that the pulsing heart of your core audience over the years was here at the drive-in, and our fans wanted this opportunity. The reason you're here tonight is we wanted this opportunity to salute you in our own way for making the movies that in 1955 and in 1965 and in 1975 and in 1985 might not have been that important to the Motion Picture Academy and might not have been that important to the British Film Institute, but they were always important to us and the driving audience.
And,
so thank you.
And
thank
they
you
were
for
they were important enough to change the business.
Yes. And what I want to say to you, Roger, is thank you for caring about the populist film audience for all of those years.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Roger. Thank you, Roger Corman. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Julie Corman. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Bruce Dern. We had a great time. Please do return. We love you. We love you. Come on, everybody.
This is something Joe Bob gave me 40 years ago, the Lifetime Achievement Award. Now, Joe Bob, it's my pleasure to give you the Lifetime Achievement Award.
Thank you very much, Roger. It was an amazing first 30 years, and it's been an amazing second 40 years. And so now you have a suitable replacement for this one.
Yes. Very good.
Thank you very much. And we expect at least 30 more years.
Yes.